Okay, so let's take a look at case 3. In case 3, both the diode and the voltage source have been reversed from the original scenario. So the DC voltage source has a polarity like so, meaning that it is negative with respect to ground. So we've got a minus V bias in like so in relation to the input waveform. For the positive cycle of the input, we have a polarity like so, and we need a polarity like this across the diode in order for it to be forward biased. So right away we can see that this is acting to reverse bias because it's positive on that side of the diode, and this is acting to reverse bias because it's positive on that side of the diode too. So we know that for the whole positive cycle, the diode is going to be reversed biased, and the output across the load resistor will follow the same shape as the input waveform, because this is going to be like an open circuit here. Okay, so that's so we end up with, for the positive cycle, the same shape as the input waveform. Now, for the negative cycle, it depends. For the negative cycle, the polarity at the input waveform will be switched around. So now it's like this. So now, if we only had the input waveform, it would be acting to forward bias the diode, but V bias is still acting to reverse bias the diode. So it will only forward bias the diode when the magnitude of this supply voltage gets larger than the magnitude of V bias, and that's this region right here. So for that little region, the diode will be forward biased, and then we'll, in this scenario, consider it to be a short, and then the output will be clipped to minus V bias. For all other times during this negative cycle, the diode is still reverse biased, and that's the output waveform that we have. Okay, and so let's clear that and take a look at the next slide, which shows a scenario where we've actually used two of the configurations that we previously talked about. And one of these configurations acts to clip off the top of the positive cycle. The other one acts to clip off the bottom of the negative cycle. So if I go to the next slide here, you can see that you would end up with a waveform like this, where the peaks of the waveform have been clipped off. And so, thinking about the previous scenarios that we discussed, you should try this example for yourself, looking at the forward or reverse bias cases of the diode, and see if you come up with the same result as we have here. Okay.